A show based on the facts, honesty, the man, the myth, the legend. ChristiTutionalist Joseph M. Leonard.
Welcome to ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast, aka CTP, in association with TheLibertyBeacon.com, and I am your host, Joseph M. Leonard, and that's Leonard. CTP is your no muss, no fuss, just me, you, and occasional guest type podcast. I really appreciate you tuning in. As Graham Norton would say, let's get on with the show! Hello, everybody. First, I gotta say, if you're watching behind the scene, BitChute, Brighteon, Rumble, YouTube, you could see me feeling my left cheek. You might be able to see it a little puffy. I'm still a little numbed up from having a tooth pulled about 2.5 hours ago. They had to shoot me with extra juice, so I'm still numb. So if I sound funny, and by funny, I don't mean my usual ha-ha lame pun funny. I mean, if I sound different or if I'm slurring or whatever, that's why. So bear with me here. But I certainly didn't want to put off this record session. Joining us today, is Eddie, 2 D's and a Y, not an I-E. Duh, Yuda. Mann, you can see me joking on the behind-the-scenes video. Yuda, because you know I can't pass a lame pun. Yuda Mann, and I guess he likes extra consonants. Oh, now you can hear my numbness there. Extra consonants in his name because it's 2 N's on the end of man. A Christian music singer-songwriter. Welcome to the show, Eddie.
Thanks, Joe. It's great to be here. Great to be here.
So before we get into your music, your latest album and current single, give us the lowdown on the, where you were born, raised, all that good stuff. How many years did you do in prison? Just kidding. All that good stuff.
Well, I'm a Philly boy through and through, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And,
we're done now. Just kidding. Well, please go on.
There were some days back there with the Pistons and the Sixers where they went at it pretty rough with each other. So yeah, I get that. No, I'm a Philly boy, and I was brought up by parents that were, if you didn't know any better, and if you're old enough, I grew up in like a sitcom family. I was so blessed to be brought up by parents that seemed to really have their act together. Unlike a lot of my friends that suffered through some different situations. But so I was brought up in a Christian home. My parents were churchgoers. So I had some seeds planted early on, and I was a painfully shy kid. Athletics, I kind of got by with athletics. I played all kinds of sports. But I was really a painfully shy kid until I picked up a guitar. And when I picked up a guitar, I just, for whatever reason, found my voice. I was maybe my first year of high school when I picked it up the first time. And for some reason, I had the confidence with that thing around my neck to say what was on my mind, to be able to speak my piece, to have a voice. And I couldn't play the damn thing any good. But that didn't matter. I had a microphone in my face, and it took time for everything to kind of catch up and balance out. But in doing so, it got me started, got me out from being so painfully shy. If a teacher asked me to read in grammar school, I would almost cry over it. It was just, and I don't know where that came from, because my parents brought me home. I was brought up in such a stable home. I had no reason to fear anything in my life. But be what it was. It took me. I think my second year of college when I decided to take a semester. I was going to take the summer off and get the music out of my system. And a lifetime later, it's kind of inbred there. It's not going anywhere, which shouldn't be too surprising. My father was a jazz pianist, a bebop pianist. So he, being a Depression age kid, wanted to be able to make sure that there was always good money coming into the house, and he ended up working for General Electric for 40 some years. But I wasn't brought up in that. I could read about the Depression. He could tell me stories about the Depression, but it wasn't part of the fiber of who I was. I never really could embrace that as full as him. And so for me, that music bug just kind of took over. I spent maybe a good decade, good 10 years or so, being a secular musician, moving from club to club, concert to concert with different bands, and supporting myself. I always played music that people wanted to hear. So I wasn't out of work, unlike, again, a lot of musician friends I know of. But I met I'm trying to keep my lifeline in order. I met my wife a second time. I met her in high school. She didn't know I existed. She came out to hear a friend of hers one night, and I was playing with him, and it was all over. I took care of her for a year, man. I really raked her over the coals. I made her pay for those high school years. But it was during that time I felt called back to the church. Right before I met her, I had been this musician for a good 15 years, and I had this thought one day that nobody really knew me other than Eddie Mann, the producer, writer, singer, songwriter. That was it. Guitarist. They really didn't know me. I didn't have any really deep relationships. Being in a band, musicians are coming and going, and you have very few long-lasting, deep friendships. And that was kind of the road to where I am now. There was some drastic changes there. I met my wife. We got married. She had some matching luggage. She had a 5-year-old daughter, and I wanted to be around my kids. So I took some time off. Actually got into education for a period of time till my kids started to get independent. Didn't need me anymore. Well, I shouldn't say didn't need me. They didn't want me around as much anymore. That's more like it. Somewhere along the line, I did something to them. But by that point, I was going to go back to writing and playing again. And I dabbled a little bit with some folk Americana type stuff. And then I had this. I was finishing up a teaching contract. I was in a Roman Catholic school, and not being a Roman Catholic, they asked me, please don't come to Mass, which, I thought, I got a free period, basically. And in the faculty room, I wrote this song, Swept Up in Joy, 15 minutes maybe. And I had this giant epiphany. Why wasn't I doing this my whole life? I should have been doing this my whole life, and my life has changed. It's a 180 change. What happened financially and faith-wise? It just ballooned, and it's kind of led me to where I am now. To I had left my church about maybe 7-8 years ago now. I was a worship leader there for 15-20 years, and I left. It was time, and I thought that maybe I was going to cool down a little bit with this, but that hasn't been the case. I may be busier now than I've been in years.
Good. That's
opportunities. Yeah. God keeps producing opportunities, and I've never shied away from opportunities. I've got where I got this position and totally unprepared as a as a spiritual leader, I could lead a band in my sleep, but I wasn't a spiritual leader when I was first called to this church. Now, granted, it was at a time when they weren't quite sure how to define what a worship leader was. We were going to kind of define it as we went along, and because of that, it was easier for me to fumble my way through some things. And I think I've at least a dozen times apologized and asked for forgiveness to all those early musicians that I really beat up. I was used to hiring and firing. You didn't know the parts. I wasn't used to volunteers. I was the only one getting paid, and I came to grips with the idea that I was successful if that band sounded like they were all getting paid on Sunday morning. So, kind of leads me to where I am today. 20 albums later, that church, by the way, encouraged me to write from the first day. The pastor of that church encouraged me to write in the language of the church and in his language to help support the ministry and the message that was being put forth. And it's taken a life of its own as far as being a CCLI licensed songwriter and having songs used on various churches on Sunday morning across the world, which is a really humbling experience.
Yeah, that's great. Couple things. You mentioned Philadelphia. Philadelphia. Just a joke. Just a loving jab. But Philadelphia, the city of brotherly love, of course, everybody knows it as that, and this being a Christian show. The sad part is they know that it's called that. They don't know the biblical origin, the agape, philia, love from the Bible. Philia became Philadelphia.
Right. Now, the residents here are not aware of that by their actions. I mean, it's pretty widespread. And I tell you the truth, Philadelphia is not so bad anymore. We just moved up out of the city this past year. I'm fortunate again, blessed again, to have a home in Florida, in Melbourne Beach, a little barrier island on the East Coast. And I work out of that. That's my home base, maybe 7 months out of the year, and then the other 5 months up here in Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. A lot of I guess biblical history in general is lost on a lot of people.
Yes. And the other thing, with you being a musician, and you said you were an athlete, I've mentioned before and talk about in one of my books, I'm not a big Springsteen, as I call him, fan, but Glory Days is a brilliant song about everybody reckoning back to their youth, have some sort of Glory Days story in their head, so that resonates so well. Maybe you could talk Springsteen into letting you to cover Glory Days because you've got that athletic tie.
Let me tell you something. I just found something out this past week. Through the Christian licensing, CCLI, which monitors all Christian music in general. And I was at an event, maybe 10 days ago, and off the cuff, the message was being delivered. I came in afterwards, I played a little music under the prayer, and for whatever reason, I started to sing the Lord's Prayer. And I just, at the end of it, my bandmates who were with me on this, and the speaker who was there, and a number of people said, wow, you have a recording of that? Is that on one of your albums? And I said, no. I said, it just kind of happened. I said, I don't, I said, before I go, I'm going to make sure that I have some kind of copy of this, because I'm going to go back to the studio and kind of figure out, is this mine? Is this spirit led? Is this something that I should be, producing so God can use it? I licensed it. I took me 72 hours or so to get something that I thought was at least workable. Made a very rough version of it, and then charted it out and made sure the licensing was taken care of. And I got a call 24 hours later and said, it appears that you might have used the Lord's Prayer from a version other than the King James. And if that's the case, you have to have clearance. I said, excuse me? I need clearance to sing the Lord's Prayer. Now the woman was real nice. We went back and forth with some emails and things, and I explained to her exactly what happened. I said, I don't know where these words came from. They're not exactly. I said, if I go look up the King James Version, maybe 90% of it is there, but there's nothing really outside of the box that would, I mean, you recognize it as the Lord's Prayer. So I said, you tell me. I said, before I take this in the studio, if I need to change some words, debtor to whatever, you let me know, but I was unaware. I was totally unaware that the King James Version was the only version of the Lord's Prayer that is copyright free. So
really, that's it. That's very, very interesting, because I was going to bring up, I remember I've got the 45 RPM vinyl of it still in my by my stereo. In the 70s, the Lord's Prayer, quote unquote, there was like sisters who sang it. Right. And I have that out. So that's interesting. And you meant that's interesting too that you bring up King James Version, because part of the point of this show is to not be a Catholic, Methodist, Presbyterian, Baptist, whatever brand, flavor Christian show, but all those things in Christianity under Christ we can agree with, and try to put apart those differences of the humans that screwed it up, that created all these different sects. Jesus didn't command these differences. Jesus never contradicted himself. We contradict ourselves and screw things up. So that's kind of interesting. Now, you said you had 20 albums. Before we get to the current one, you said 20 albums. That's great.
Yeah. First of all, amen, brother. I mean, we could preach on the same platform any night. One of the things that has helped me through the years is that I've always been about Jesus, nothing more. And so I could walk into any particular church and I could sing and talk about Jesus. One of the reasons I left the church that I was at for so long was because they had this idea. They wanted to be inclusive, and then they decided that if you didn't agree with their ideal of inclusivity, they would exclude you.
Yeah.
So they became exclusive in their inclusivity, which is just...
that is so spot on. There's a lot of these that are the church of woke, not the church of Christ anymore.
Yeah, it's sad. It really is. I don't pertain to follow any of it. A lot of times it's uncomfortable to even use the term Christian, because there's so many bad connotations from specific churches that have used that moniker, so to speak, and just kind of twisted it and turned it. And I'm a follower of Jesus. I can't be any more clear to people than that. You can put me in any box you want. I'm not going to put myself in any box. I'm just going to follow Jesus, because that's all he asked us to do in the Bible. Follow me. That's simple enough. I'm going to do that. I'm going to follow him, and I'm going to work each day to be a better man than I was yesterday, knowing that I'm a broken piece of work from the start with. But I'm still, he is worthy of me getting up each day and wanting to be perfect for him. And that's kind of...
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Wham Radio, 1600 AM and 92.7 FM is your conservative flamethrower. Weekdays, Steve Gruber starts things off at 6 a.m. Gruber gives his perspective on the issues of the day. At 9 a.m., Glenn Beck blazes the airwaves with his nationally syndicated program. From noon to 3, it's Dennis Prager. At 3 o'clock, it's Wham's own Therone X. On the Edge, Therone tells it exactly as he sees it. At 6, it's The Dana Show, your conservative alternative. At 8, don't miss Joe Pags. Weekends are filled with conservative talk as well. Fingers Malloy, Thomas LeDuc, The Abolitionists Roundtable, A Moment of Clarity with Pastor Rick, Your American Heritage with Ed Bondarenka, Dave Janda's Operation Freedom, and Dick Kupke's Trigger Talk. You can even get links to Wham podcasts from Dave, Dick, and of course Therone, all from their pages on our website, whamradio.com. Keep it locked on Wham Radio, 1600 AM and 92.7 FM in southeastern Michigan, and whamradio.com anywhere in the world.
Yeah, amen. Humans, we are all frail and flawed. No such thing as perfect on this planet, especially since Christ, the only perfect being to be on the planet, left. And yeah, we can try to do our best, fall short at time, ask the forgiveness and whatnot. But your newest album, I understand, is called Turn Up the Divine, which just the way my weird warped brain works, because I do have music background too. My dad had Ted Leonard Jr. and the Polka Kings. They have 3 albums. So I wrote and recorded music in the 70s and 80s. But back then, if you didn't get a record deal, it didn't amount to anything. Today, you could put anything and everything online, even if nothing else. So, but I stayed writing, and more so books these days, and articles, and now of course this podcast. Where was I going? Oh, the way my brain, Turn Up the Divine. I see Turn Up, and I immediately get in my head, you may know this, you're old enough, the old Autograph song, Turn Up the Radio. You know that tune?
No, I don't.
Yeah, an old 80s tune by a group called Autograph. Yeah, Turn Up the Radio, and you've got Turn Up the Divine. So tell us about what inspired that title. Pretty obvious, I would think, but that title and, what came on the album because of it. Is it a concept?
I had released last year. I've got maybe 4 or 5 albums that I would consider worship albums. Maybe every 3rd or 4th album as I'm moving along, I feel called to come back and do something that would just worships God. In between, I have these albums full of songs that are basically, they're conversation starters, but they're all biblically sound and inspired, but they're songs about how I get through the day, how I maneuver, how I navigate my way through a world that's so broken. And so when I go out, I have the opportunity even in secular rooms, if I'm booked in one, to do these songs. And often people will say, well, where did that come from? And they're basically opening the Bible for me, which is an awesome way to reach people. And some people are turned off as soon as they see a Bible or hear it. But this opens up the possibility for me to use these songs that way. So a year ago, I released an album called Chapel Songs. And it was a selection of songs that I wrote specifically for the small church. Most churches are not your big supermarket type churches. They're small. They've got 10 or 15 people. There may be 1 or 2 people and they're singing praises. And I wanted to write an album that would have music that they would be able to embrace easily, both musically and text wise. And while I was recording that, as I was still writing, and the songs that came up afterwards, I didn't have a concept, but the songs, there was maybe 18, 20 plus songs, and I kind of whittled them down to the songs that are on Turn Up the Divine. And it's funny, the title itself just kind of came out of my mouth in a conversation. And I
love that, right? Lower the noise. The garbage, turn up the divine.
Yeah.
I love that concept.
I didn't think of it as the album title at first, but as I was putting the songs together, the ones that I felt God wanted on this project, I kept thinking, and I kept referring back to what I see each day in this world, and it's a world that desperately needs the divine at a much louder level than it is. Whether that's in the way we react and the opportunities we have to converse with other people, and sharing, books and music and art that reinforce the kingdom. One of the questions that kind of frazzles me a little, people want to know what genre of music are you? And I said, keep telling people, I'm not, I said, let me back up a second and put it in terms of Jesus. I figured Jesus has a record collection, and his collection are songs that basically support the kingdom. They speak of the kingdom, they support the kingdom. And then there's this other selection. I said, he don't have those. It doesn't matter whether it's jazz, rock, country, blues. You're either there with him and you are talking. I said, if I write a song that speaks about 30 years of marriage and how much I still love my wife, you don't think God's going to be happy with that? That Jesus wouldn't be happy with that? I said, it's not, I said, it's the only genre, if you want to call it that, that's basically decided by its lyrics, not by the actual music stylings. If you're a Christian, if you're a Christian artist, you have a Christian message. And that's basically what I want to be. That's the songs on Turn Up the Divine are songs that speak specifically to situations that I've run across in the past year. There's one or two songs. There's a song on there called the Red Thread. That goes back a few extra years. But that came out of a conversation with somebody. Again, it was a diversity conversation. And I kept trying to impress upon this guy that, God created all this diversity for us. I said, when I taught, I used to tell kids, if you have a bad voice, as a music teacher, I said, if you have a bad voice, sing as loud as you can, because the people around you with good voices will sing louder. I said, this is the way it works. But I said, in God's infinite wisdom, when you take a room full of people, the worst and the best voices, when you mesh them all together, it's unbelievably beautiful. Well, tell me he didn't know what he was doing.
Right.
So for kids, I would tell them, you took it to paint the most beautiful rainbow in the world. And think of them as being all different types of voices. When you start pulling out certain colors, a rainbow's not as beautiful anymore. And that's us. That's us. I can't even sing. I can't even sing the word rainbow anymore without being afraid of how people are going to take it.
Yeah. Oh, I hear you. Yeah.
And I refuse to not sing it.
Yeah. The 7-color God's rainbow versus the political leftist tearing down our nation 6-color rainbow. Diversity is a wonderful natural thing.
Yeah.
It becomes an issue and perverted the way man is trying to use it as a weapon. That's where the problem is. Yeah. Now I'm curious if your home in Florida inspired the Humble Cottage by the Sea, which is your current single.
It certainly helped inspire it musically. I liked the story. I love Peter to start with. I kind of relate to that and relate to him a little bit. And I don't know where I was imagining one day reading the story about his mother being ill or his wife, and I just all I could imagine was Jesus doing what we see and or read a lot in the Old Testament, going to this person, and I was taken with the idea that these guys were fishermen, so they had to have meager dwellings and meager accommodations. And I thought, well, how cool is that? Time and time again, that's where we see Jesus. We don't see him, going to the mansions and going to the wealthy people. And I thought, that's the message. That's the message here. The message is that he's there. Yeah, he's in the room with your room right now. He's in your studio. He's in my studio right now. He's in anybody listening. He's with them right now, which is such an awesome thing to start with. But you don't need to be anywhere but where he wants you to be, for him to be involved in your life. And that was kind of the message there, the underlying message. It's nice to use this story. And I didn't have music for it. It took a while to get the musical idea for it. Being in Florida, the studio in Florida is where I recorded the song. There's a lot of island feel to it.
You didn't rip off Jimmy Buffett, did you?
No, actually, I'm not a Jimmy Buffett fan. I'm the one.
Yeah,
I'm the one. I don't dislike Jimmy Buffett, but he doesn't do it for me the way other people do. Yet I really do have a fondness for reggae, island, ska type music. That reappears from time to time in my writing. As I said earlier, my father being a musician, I was brought up in a house that we listened to all different types of music. There wasn't no stereotypical, this is the only kind of music, we're just listening to jazz because I liked it. No, I was opened up to all these different styles, and I've maintained that as an adult, where I listen to a lot of different styles. So when I'm writing a song, and I want to allow it to go where it needs to go, where it wants to go. I mean, usually from a lyric standpoint, often I'm just trying to allow the Spirit. I just want to be a vessel for the Spirit to work. My poor wife, she's heard all the ones that I wrote. I try to leave those. I try to leave those at home and use the ones that feel like. And I don't get it right all the time. I mean, I had more than one song I brought into church, and we sang it, and it just laid there. And then there's some that even the first time you do it, there's just something happens in the room. There's the presence, the Spirit's presence is unbelievable. So, I mean, lyrically, that's always, that kind of takes care of the lyrical part of it. Or if I'm writing something right from Scripture or the Psalms, I want to pay homage, but I want to honor it. I don't want to, mess up the thought behind.
Yeah, I hear you. I think, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but like me, I say about my books, they are not of or from me. They are through me.
Yeah. That's a really tough place to be. And being on the platform, leading worship is just, it's such a hard place to be humble, to not let ego, to not let the flesh have its moment. I do a Thursday night live stream, and this past Thursday, I went back to an album I released in, I think, 2012. And for whatever reason, I just used all the music. I did 6 or 7 songs from that album that night. And during the midst of one of the songs, I found my mind wander from God. And I mean, it caught me, it startled me, and I kind of fumbled a little bit. And most people wouldn't hear it. I've been doing this long enough now that, I know how to roll through those human moments. But I was so conflicted afterwards that I came clean, and I said, "Listen, I need to tell you what just happened." And I came clean to my audience about what I had went through and how my mind moved and how it affected me, and how I get to do this on Thursday night. God uses me in this way, and I'm so blessed by it. But it's not because I'm any better than anybody else.
Yeah. I hear you. The hubris. I've had many arguments on social media the last few days. I wrote a couple articles for beforeitsnews.com which was primarily started as a Christian site, but it's got a million different categories. And, there's atheists and all kinds of conspiracy and, everything is there now. But I mainly see it and use it as a Christian outlet still. And I wrote about, is the end nigh? Every decade, there's people running around with the signs, the end is nigh. I mean, is it really this time? And is the book of Revelation actually starting to unfold? And a lot of people, going back to hubris, now pride. Now, you have pride in your children when they do something. You write a good song. It's okay to be proud of that. That is different than, quote, hubris. That's kind of really the word. That's the sin. That's the problem. Yeah. And it's like the rapture now. I am so concerned about a lot of fellow Christians running around, whatever happens, happens. I don't care. The rapture's around the corner. I'm out of here. See ya, suckers. Excuse me? Excuse me? It's God's time, not yours. It's God's terms, not yours. I don't know if I will be raptured, if there even is going to be a rapture. I don't think that is something for us to get hung up about. Don't get hung up about the caught up, as I like to say jokingly, right? If and when it happens, it's on God's time and God's terms. There's a whole lot of other things on earth happening in the here and now we need to be paying attention to, right? Yeah. You have to sow to reap. That means action, not just sit back and say, whatever. No, we must act in the here and now, or evil indeed prevails, right? We know what's coming, but that doesn't mean we should help hasten it. Then we are complicit in the evil. If we don't try to help prevent it, put that time off, in my opinion, we are complicit in the evil. What are your thoughts on that?
I have to be honest, I don't spend any time during the course of my day thinking or worrying about it. I do.
Good.
I do think, and I'm not even going to use the word worry, but I do work at being aware of the opportunities in my day to do God's work. I feel like if that's all I can do, I'm here for a purpose. When my work is done here, that's when God's going to take me home. So if that's what I believe in, then I got to get up each day and I need to I just need to follow that spirit. I write every day. Some of the songs don't see the light of day out of the studio. Some are just for me, just to flush through my system. Sometimes the song I'm writing today, God may use it a year from now, 4 years from now, to touch one person. That's gold. I've done my job. And I feel like if I get up each day and I work at doing that, then I'm what's the word I want to use here? I'm where I need to be in my journey. I'm where I need to be in His plan for me and His purpose for me. Now, again, I say all that knowing, again, that I'm broken. I wrote a song maybe 4 years ago, on an album called Worship. It's called Once Again, Lord, and it basically is about how, I go to God broken, and then when my next time of prayer during the day is from a humble position for what He's done for me, and then later, maybe in the afternoon, I go back to prayer, and I'm so grateful, and by the time evening comes, I go back to Him, and I go, I'm broken again. It's the endless circle of being human, of being in the flesh. So, but knowing that doesn't make it any less important for me to do what I feel is I need to do. Now, all day long, if I'm following that purpose and I am writing, and I am in conversations with people at the checkout line at the supermarket or any place else, I have an opportunity to be the hands, the voice, of Jesus. And sometimes, more often than not, they're the most powerful moments, because people, when they find out you're a Christian, they see, well, maybe that's why he acted the way he did. Maybe that's why he said what he did. There seemed to be something different about him. I like 2 Thessalonians. It says, if we're a follower, we should look different. It doesn't say we might look different, or maybe, no, we should look different than what's all around us in the world.
If we're a real Christian, not a fake Christian. Yeah.
Right.
But I could talk to you all day, but I like to keep my shows not much over 30 minutes. If I do go over 30 minutes, today's twatter attention span, I call it. Everybody just wants to give me the headline, which could be misleading, or give me the drive-by pot shot soundbite, which again could then be taken out of context. A whole lot of gray areas. You need to talk details. But at any rate, and wow, that's the first time I said that during the show, which is an ongoing running joke. I started saying at any rate a few months ago, so now I say it to laugh at myself by saying it over and over every show. So indeed, at any rate, the usual ending podcast question: where do people find your recordings? And if they want to reach out to you, do you have a website or whatnot? How do people contact you?
The website is eddymann.com. Remember those double consonants, EDDYMANN. That's got anything and everything. That's my humble place to start. You can purchase music. You can stream music there. What's important is hearing the message, not lining my pockets. God's taking care of me. On Facebook, Instagram, every platform, Spotify, Apple. Although a little sidebar, Spotify took down 2 of my albums. I don't know why yet. I'm still trying to figure out. Yeah, between 2019 and 2016, there's a gap, 3 years. I did not take 3 years off. There are 2 albums that have disappeared there. And one was the worship album I was just talking about with that song once again. So I feel like there's some evil tug of war going there. But on Facebook, it's eddymann.musician. On Instagram and X, I guess we call it now, it's Eddy_man. YouTube is just Eddy Mann. I've got a pretty large footprint at this point on the internet, and I encourage people, whether it's through email or messages or texts, to be in conversation with me. What I love to share with people, if I touch a nerve and it's just killing you and it's making you angry, or you just don't understand it, please, let's be in conversation. I'm not one of those people that if I don't agree with you, I don't want to talk with you. I think it's more important that we talk when we don't agree. I want my faith challenged. I want my life challenged, because it only makes it stronger. So here we are.
All right. Thank you, Eddy Mann, for joining the ChristiTutionalist Politics Show today. Thank you.
Thanks for having me, Joe. I look forward to it. Appreciate it.
This is a special tack-on segment for a couple of shows to let you know about some August, September, October, potentially out into November shows. If you're looking behind the scenes, you can see I've got my I Remember Never Forget 9/11 shirt on and the 9/11 background, since we're going to be talking about things that will drop over September, October, this being August when I'm recording. And Hadassah Troy will be on, and she talks about how painful experiences become the birthplace of blessings. That's her book. How does Garth Brooks, I'm getting dyslexic with his name. How does Garth Brooks' Unanswered Prayers song
relate? Hope you'll tune in to find out, as well as Star Trek V, the movie. How does that relate? I hope these little teases mean you'll tune in when it drops, or depending on where this additional segment gets tacked on, may have already dropped in August, so please check it out. Another, I should say, August drop will be David Shine, holding up the note there. David Shine is the best-selling author of Bad Deal for America and The Decline of America, 100 Years of Leadership Failures. Obvious tie-in to the politics part of the ChristiTutionalist Politics podcast show. And in September, or going forward, loosely planned for September, October timeframe, M.H. Ulrich comes on, and we talk also, not another movie reference in there, but I hope you'll check in to find out how the discussion with her brings up C.S. Lewis, but Star Trek again, right? Likely 2 episodes in a row or an episode apart. This time, Star Trek, the original series, an episode called Parallel. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the old series, they go to a planet and they worship the sun. They assume it's S-U-N, the sun above. But as you get to the end, you find out it is Christ having visited another planet, the Son of God on another planet, which is really kind of blows my mind, knowing that Gene Roddenberry was an atheist, that such an episode would have even been remotely allowed and considered. But, you know, I want to give him credit. There were a wide variety of topics covered by that show. So please tune in to the M.H. Ulrich episode to find out how that Star Trek episode factors in. If you recall, if you've been with me a long time, last year, 9/11, I had on my friend from Wham Radio, Your American Heritage Show, Ed Bondarenka. I plan for now that the episode again will drop a new one, not a repeat, a new one on 9/11 with Ed Bondarenka. But it is not, while we'll touch on that somber Remembrance Day, it is not a show dedicated to that. But I just thought that was a logical day time frame to have him back on, since he was on last 9/11. Leslie Hall. Now think Leslie Nielsen. By Leslie, we're talking a male here. Leslie Hall, and a great conversation with him. And we talk MLK in there, and we talk about addiction. So that's an important show. I hope you'll tune in. We need a youth perspective, so I've got a couple coming up. Christopher Armstrong Stevenson, a young man, a high schooler, will be on so that we could talk a youth perspective. A Zoomer to Boomer. I use that term advisedly. You'll see why a little later. Eddie Yuda Mann. Man with 2 N's though, but you know me, I can't pass the lame pun, so I call him Eddie Yuda Mann will be on. He's a Christian music singer-songwriter. I'm going to have a few of them on, so I hope you'll tune in for that. William R. Douglas, I'm holding up to the camera my notes from that. The Sum of All Our Anger, Civil War 2.0 book cover. You can see if you're looking behind the scenes, obviously, with all that's going on. And my friend Michael Gardner, a.k.a. Savage, who wrote the book, America's Political Battle, a current civil war in terms of a cold civil war. We're in a battle. We're in a civil war. It's just not shooting at each other yet. Whereas William, his book goes into the what if it turns hot over the next few years. His, like my Terror Strikes book, is historical fiction. There is some fact, some fiction that lends credence to the fact that these issues boil over, may lead to a hot civil war. Another singer-songwriter, Richard Lynch, will be on. We will be mentioning a few, Barry Gibb, Conway Twitty. Tune in to find how they factor into that episode. Christine Sposato. Hey, we're both Italiano, so we joke Italian desserts. But seriously, you've heard me talk about conservatives being censored on school campuses, and she indeed created a group, studentvoicessilence.com, so we will talk further about that. Another singer-songwriter, Robert Ross, will be on. If you don't have to like country, you shouldn't have to like country to tune in, but if you are a country fan, obviously you really want to tune in to find out how and why Freddie Fender, David Allan Coe get mentioned in the episode, as well as I lost my place. Looking, Conway Twitty again, George Jones, and Vern Gosden. He brought that name up. That was a name I hadn't heard in a long time, so please tune in for that. Robert Boog. Ever since I was in high school, we heard the rumor and conspiracy theory that William Shakespeare didn't write his stuff. I venture into that discussion with Robert Boog. James Gebhardt is on. And in Who is Babysitting Whom, we've talked about honor your mother and father, right? Who is the parent? The left wants your children to be wards of the state. This is why they hate and want to destroy Christianity. That honor your mother and father part is in the way of their turning all children of the nation into wards of the fascistic state. Remember, I've talked before, Hitlery and the warping of It Takes a Village, which is biblical, not Hitlery's It Takes the Fascistic State warped version of it. Michelle Jewsbury, if you remember, I had Trent Brock on in the past. He has a chapter in a book about survivors, hardships in life. Michelle Jewsbury has got a volume 1 out, volume 2, 3, 4 will be coming, collections of survivors of hardships, so people know they are not alone. And indeed, there may be, hopefully is, they're not alone, there is help, there can be light at the end of the tunnel or around the corner. I mentioned Zoomers to Boomers. If you see behind the scene there, you see a little logo there. Zoomers to Boomer. Roger Landry of the Liberty Beacon Project. Again, I write for thelibertybeacon.com. I am on TLB Talk. That's all part of the TLB Project. He's founder of that. He has a show with a young lady, not going to turn 18 soon, but not yet. So a young lady, hence Zoomers to Boomers. They have a show together. So again, we get that youth perspective here that's much needed. And lastly, I'm going to mention Luann Hunt, another singer-songwriter.
if you're at all a Patsy Cline fan, or your parents or your grandparents were a Patsy Cline fan, you want to turn into I cannot talk. You want to tune into that show to see how Patsy Cline has factored into Luann Hunt's life. And Patsy Cline kind of lives on now through Luann Hunt. Thank you all. Just wanted to give you a brief sneak peek at coming midweek Wednesday guest appearance drops. Take care. God bless.
Thank you for having tuned in for ChristiTutionalist Politics Show. If you haven't already, please check out my primary internationally available book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you. Available anywhere books are sold. If you have locally run bookstores still near you, they can order it for you, or autographed copies are available online direct from me via terrorstrikes.info/shop. Be sure to check out more about today's discussion at thelibertybeacon.com, where my articles drop every Saturday. And let me remind, over time, the fancy high production items will come. But for now, for starters, it's just you as a very appreciated listener by me. All substance, no fluff, no fancy high production intro or inserts, at least yet. Just straight to key discussion points. A show that looks at a variety of topics, mostly politics, through a Christian U.S. constitutionalist lens. So again, thank you from the bottom of my heart. Take care. God bless. Like and subscribe to ChristiTutionalist Politics Podcast and share episodes. We need your help.
It is a myth that terrorism stopped during COVID. Unfortunately, mainstream media opted to prioritize pandemic hysteria over promoting all news. Terrorism continues. Simply hoping that it doesn't affect you is not a strategy. The new book, Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you, featured on The Author Show, is now available in paperback from bookstores, online, or as an ebook exclusively through Amazon Kindle. Terror Strikes, coming soon to a city near you by Joseph M. Leonard. Order today.